everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Anderson. I am a freelance artist and teacher hoping to inspire creativity. If you would like more videos like these, please take a second to like and subscribe down below. It really helps in the algorithm of YouTube to help get my videos seen to more people. If you want to receive notifications of when I go live, please make sure to hit the bell and choose all notifications. If you have any questions during or after the class, make sure to pop a comment down below and I will answer it as soon as I can. I'll be leaving timestamps down below so you can skip ahead to the start of class, but I will be sharing announcements as well as supplies, so make sure to stick around for that. If interested in learning more about my classes, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and feel free to check me out on Patreon where I teach exclusive classes to those who support me. In Patreon, I also give traceables for all of my live classes, including this one. Lastly, if you would like to share your work after class with me and others who painted along with us, please head over to Facebook, as I have an artist community where you can share your finished painting with us. I'll leave links for all of that in the description box below. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to another live class. This is our last addition to our space theme this month. And yeah, I don't know if I meant to leave, the best for last, but this is probably one of the ones that I was most excited for. I feel like there's so much going on, but it's so cool to look at, in my opinion. So I am excited. So I see a couple of you have already said hi in the comments. Keep them coming. I love to see where you guys are painting from. We have Sarah from Fresno. Hey, we are not far from each other. I live in Merced. So we are just a hop, skip, and a jump away from each other. There's Sydney from Kingston and Steve from New York. And hello, Lisa and Jill from Maryland. Hello, hello. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Just a few things. We're going to go over our supplies, and then we'll just have a few announcements, a few sneak peeks for next month that I'm really excited for. So yeah, let's get started. I do have a traceable for this class, so I'm not using it for this class, but I do have it available. This is the 9x11, so you would just position it however you want. I'm going to go ahead and teach it without it this time around. I do this every once in a while, just sometimes I feel like teaching it rather than putting on the traceable myself. So I have two sizes. I have the 9x12 as well as the 11x14. And this is the one for the smaller canvases, which is why it doesn't fit quite as well. But I will be going over how to kind of put it on in case you don't want to use the traceable. The traceable is available in my Patreon. I have pinned a comment as well as it's also in the description of this event. It's a way to support me as an artist, and it's also just for those who don't want to draw it on. Some people feel uncomfortable, some people just don't want to. Whatever category you're in, it's not cheating, it's okay. It's just another tool we use as artists to create art. So yeah, so there is that in my Patreon. Let's go ahead and go over supplies real fast. One thing before we do that, if you are not on Facebook, please go on there. You can look me up, or you can click one of the links in the description, or you can just look up SamanthaAndersonArtist. That is where most of my content is put out. So upcoming classes, sneak peeks, behind the scenes, things like that, polls, contests, all of that is going to be on my Facebook page. So if you're not following me on Facebook, please make sure to go over there and follow me. And then for YouTube, if you have been following me for a while or this is your first time, welcome, hello. A free way to support me is to like this video as well as subscribe. So my goal for this year, my New Year's resolution, hopefully, is to get 10,000 subscribers. I'm at 7,000 right now. So any help would be greatly appreciated. And if you've been following for a while, share my content. do that. It's a free way to support me, and I really, really appreciate it. The more interaction I get on videos, you know, the more YouTube pushes that algorithm stuff. But yeah, anyways, I really appreciate it. So yeah, there's that. Let's go over supplies and we will get going. I am using an 11 by 14 canvas. This is just a standard one from Hobby Lobby, I think, or maybe this one's from Michael's. I have some Frederick ones that I will be using next month for next month's classes, so stay tuned for that, as well as I also have a giveaway for some of their canvases next month. So if you're not on Facebook, make sure to go over there, because I don't know if I'll be posting on YouTube because I don't want to get everything confused. So if you want the chance to win some canvases from Fredericks, make sure to follow me on Facebook, okay? So I'm using an 11 by 14. If you have a different size canvas, that is totally fine. Use what you have. I'm all about that. I have 2 things of water, just in case whenever I'm using dark colors, I tend to like to have two waters, just because as soon as you rinse out one brush of dark paint, it like taints the entire water, and then you don't have clean water for the rest of your canvas, or when you're doing colors. So I like to have 2. I think I'm just gonna start having 2 for all my stuff, because why not? Water, paper towel, your palette. I have this little scraper that I can scrape off if I need more room. For this class, you will also need a toothbrush if you have one. If you don't have one, you could use an old brush or any stiff brush you might have. Works fine. I will go over brushes as I use them, but my typical brushes that I will use is a large to medium filbert, typically a smaller filbert. I tend to like the round, the oval ones, and that's really the only difference between that and a flat brush. And then I will have a round brush on hand, as well as a liner brush. So these are like my 4 go-to brushes for like all of my classes. So these are kind of like the 4 brushes that I keep on hand. But then we might use some other ones here and there. It kind of just depends on what we're doing. For this class specifically, and for nebula and clouds and anything like that, I will tend to have a larger round brush that I will use. It's just preference. If you have a different brush that you like to use for this sort of thing, feel free to use that. But that's kind of what I will be using. I may or may not grab another brush, but I will let you know if that happens. And then I also have a palette knife for mixing paint. If you have a flat palette, I would highly recommend having a flat palette knife for mixing your paint. It tends to not muddy up your water before you even started painting, and you can mix large amounts of paint without dirtying and getting all that paint in your brushes and then end up wasting it, or then you have streaks of paint. It's just easier. Let's go over some colors real fast. Now I might have switched up my colors a little bit. I'm trying to figure out what colors I really want to highlight in this, because some of the other colors that I've used throughout the month haven't been as bright as I wanted to, and I really, really, really want this painting to be bright and full of that pink. Okay, so I went out and bought myself a very bright pink. I don't know if why does it look red here? It's very pink. See, that's very different. It looks red on here. Let me go ahead and change. I'm gonna change the my settings on my camera a little fast to reflect what it actually is. For some reason, whenever I do this pink, it doesn't work as much. Okay, let's see. Everything else is also going to get pinker, so I just wanted to reflect what I see. I think it has to be. Yeah, it does look orange. That's why I'm going to change this. So this is more of what it looks like. It's actually, I don't know, it's just like brighter. Maybe saturation. My hands look fine. Okay, so that's a bit closer. I think that's good. Yeah, it's probably my lighting. I have like some, I wouldn't say orange, but it is. Oh, I forgot. I have a lighting here. Ah, wait for it to adjust. There we go. You can see me now. I didn't even realize I was like in the dark. But yeah, so this is that. It's a little bit, that's a little bit better. This one looks a little bit too purple in this lighting. My cameras are all different. It's fine. We're fine. But at least now it'll be a little bit more true to color. So I have this is the pink I have. I have a bright pink. This is the fluorescent pink from Liquitex Basics. And then I have just a rose pink from Hippie Crafter, and they don't look much different, but they are. This is the difference. My palette camera is just it's like an old webcam, so it's really, eventually I will update all my cameras, but as of now, this is what we're working with, and that's totally fine. So I have these two, and then, so those are my pinks. I couldn't figure out which blue I wanted to do. I have a Phthalo Blue right now, because I do think that a lot of these blues are a little bit more in the green category versus the cold blue. So ultramarine is a little bit on the cooler side, and Phthalo Blue is on the warmer side. So I think these are a little bit more on the warmer side. I will be adding some purple to the background to give it that kind of dark, almost black, but not quite. But we will play with the colors, okay? And then I have a cool gray. This is totally optional. This is just a version, essentially, of white. You can make a cool gray with like a tiny bit of blue and brown, I would say. Maybe blue, brown, and maybe a tiny bit of black. So feel free to make it. If not, I don't even know if I'm going to use it. I just have it just in case I feel like using it. And then raw umber. Somebody said they don't have raw umber. I don't have raw umber, so I'm mixing gray and burnt umber. Yeah, you can do that. You can also do a burnt umber and black, and it'll get pretty close. It's mostly just to add a tiny bit of color onto some of the rocks. It's actually optional. You don't have to do that. If you don't want to, you could just do black and white rocks, and that's totally fine. And then obviously your black and your white. That is it for colors. Speaking of color, before we get started, I want to share a sneak peek of what we are painting in my Patreon next month, because I just finished it yesterday and I'm obsessed. So if you like animals and you like color and you like realism, here is a abstract realism painting that I am so excited for. So this will be in the magenta tier, which is the $10 tier. It's $10 for the whole month. You get this painting plus every other Friday tutorial I've ever painted in my Patreon. So you get access to all of that and this class. And it was so much fun. And it was way easier than I anticipated it being. I've never done a style like this before. I even say that in the class. I've never taught anything like this. But it was so easy. So if you've wanted to do something like this, it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. So have fun with me in Patreon next month. Wait until the 1st. If you just want this class, wait until the 1st to subscribe. And then I think it goes out on the 3rd. It's whatever this is, the first Friday. The first Friday of the month is when that will be released, and then you'll get that class. Okay. Yeah, I think, does anybody have any questions so far? I see a lot of people saying hello. I think I kept up on the comments. If you have a question during class, make sure to @ me so that it draws my attention to the box, because I know sometimes if people are chatting, then I won't like realize you've asked a question. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. I forgot. The other color I have out is an emerald green. It's like a really pretty, like, kind of soft bright green, I would say. I don't have like an electric blue or anything like that, and I wanted to add some bright blue to like this, whatever this world is. So I plan on mixing this with some blue and maybe some white. But it's an optional thing. You don't have to have that. Yeah, I'm excited to get started. Okay, let's go ahead and make our black background. Well, it's not black. Our blue background. I just said that. Blue background. I'm going to be using Phthalo Blue. So I'm going to get out a good amount of Phthalo Blue. And then I'm going to get out my violet. So the purple that I have, it's violet. It is very dark. As soon as I put this on the canvas, it will look black. But let me show you. So it looks black right now, but if I put any amount of white in this, actually let me move this over so you can see there you go. If I put any amount of white in this, it becomes purple because it's just a very, very dark purple. Okay, so that's the color we're working with, at least that I'm working with. If you're working with something else, maybe you don't need to brighten it up. Maybe you need something darker. Mine's very dark, so I plan to mix these two colors and come up with a very dark background. I'm gonna try not to go too dark because I do want to be able to see these black pieces. Yeah, so let's go ahead and mix some of this together. I'm going to use most of this, and I'm gonna mix it with some purple. And in order to see this, like what color I'm actually dealing with, I am gonna need to use kind of like what I just did with the purple to see like what color it was. I'm gonna need to do the same thing with the white to see what color it is. Okay, I think I need more purple. And then I think I'm also gonna add a tiny bit of black. Try not to put too much black in it, because if you put too much black, then it's just going to taint everything and it's just going to be obnoxiously dark. I do still want to see this color. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just like the slightest hint of white and see what that does. What black am I using? The black that I have is Mars black. It's not my favorite because it's a warm black. My favorite is ivory black because I feel like it is more true to what black is. But the one that I was sent from Hippie Crafter is Mars black, so it's the warmer black. Warmer black. I mean, I am tongue-tied today. I'm gonna add a little bit more black, and by adding white and black to this color, it's going to gray it out a little bit, which I am totally fine with. Okay, I think this is a good color. Yes, I think I like this. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I have my blue. Now I'm gonna make my pink a little bit brighter than the reference picture. At least on my screen, it's a little bit more on the white whiter pink side versus the bright pink. On my phone, it tends to be a little bit brighter. I'm not sure what are my computer settings. So maybe it's just my computer. Whoa! I meant to move my window. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm just gonna paint what I want to paint, and we'll go from there. So I have my blue, and now I'm going to I'm gonna make my pink. Now this specific pink is very, very bright, and I don't know if I want it that bright. Again, it doesn't look as bright on this camera, but I think I might mix it with a little bit of this like magenta-y color. So first I'm going to wipe my palette knife off. And I'm going to just mix this together. It'll make it just slightly not as fluorescent. I think that's fine. And if I need to make it brighter, I can always add more pink, more fluorescent pink. Samantha, can I do my background? Yes, we're gonna do the background right now. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is grab our small brush, and we're gonna put in where everything is, okay? Because we don't need to cover the entire background with this first coat. So we are going to, I'm gonna grab a little bit of blue and a little bit of water. And I'm going to figure out where everything is. So whenever I'm looking at a picture, I try to go based off of where it is in relation to other things. So the top of the planet that is the closest is just over half, and it goes to about the middle. So if you want, you can put little marks where it is, and then if you want, you can just do it by yourself, figure out the easiest point from A to B, and you can just put it in. This is the part where you can mess up, okay? If you're like, oh, it's too small or whatever, you can just fix it and then paint over it. So this is the part you get to be a little messy, okay? We're just gonna paint this in. Is it possible to view video at later time? Absolutely. All my classes that are free on YouTube will forever stay on my YouTube channel. You can come back and view it at any time. Let's see. I'm not gonna worry about the thing over here, and I'm not gonna worry about the asteroids. Okay, so just the big planet. That's really all I need, because this is going to be a different base color than this one. Okay, and actually, yeah, that's fine. So we're going to do the background first, and then this one, and then the planet. Okay, so go ahead and grab your biggest one, whatever brush you want to do for the background. And we're going to be adding this nebula kind of as we go. So what you want to do is, as we go, we're going to start adding some other colors before it dries, and that will create an easy way to add that color. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the sides of my canvas, because one, I tend to forget those. And two, it is a great place to test out your color and make sure it is in fact the color that you want. Mine is a little bit lighter than I want. So at this point, I'm going to grab my black and mix it in. And that is way better. So because instead of just going straight on it, I was able to test out the color before I painted on something more important, like the front. And because this is so dark, we may need to do a second coat, which in that case, we can always fix the color. And I think I might do that. Instead of blues tend to, at least in my opinion, in my experience, blues tend to be a little bit more translucent whenever I paint. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and do a single coat of all of this, and then once that's dry, I might put a like another coat on it. All right, so I'm putting a little bit of water, just a little bit, because I know that it's going to be a second coat. I'm going to do 2 coats of it. I'm not too worried about it being super opaque and not see-through. I am trying to make sure that all of my brush strokes are going all the way across. And I'm okay if this middle area is a little bit lighter, because it's going to end up being a little bit lighter anyways. And for those of you who are just chiming in, this is called the ugly stage. It's the part where you're like, what am I doing? Why does it look like this? Am I a professional? I don't know. You start doubting how good you are. Don't do that. Don't doubt yourself. I'm gonna go in with some white right here. I'm gonna grab some white and I'm just gonna swirl my brush. Just gonna take some white, swirl my brush, and maybe practice. You can practice, you know, doing some nebula. This is not what it's gonna look like, but you know, you can practice. Why not? We're gonna cover this part up anyways. I'm just gonna add some lighter parts here because why not? I do want to get the angle of this right. So you want to go from this middle piece up in this direction, up to the corner. So I'm just being pretty rough with my brush and just kind of dabbing it and pushing it, and it's pretty much it. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with my dark color because I still have to get this side of it. gonna go ahead and rinse out my brush, and while that is drying, I'm gonna go ahead and figure out what color I want my this planet to be, because this one up here kind of reflects a lot of the colors already in the sky. This one's a little bit more like a green color. So I'm going to get out some more Phthalo Blue, and I'm going to mix it with this like emerald green color. I'm gonna see, oh, that's perfect. That is pretty. Okay. Well, that was easy. It's not often that that's like a one-time. All right. So that's perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on here, and we're probably gonna need 2 coats of this too. So we're just gonna add this color. And again, if you don't have that green color, you can just add probably any type of green, just maybe a little bit less of it. And this green essentially had a tiny bit of white in it, so maybe add a little bit of white. And then I'm gonna go into the dark color on the edge, and then you can just kind of blend them together. So it's a little bit darker on the edge. And of course, can't forget the bottom. Okay, and we will add in all of the lighting and that sort of thing as we go. All right, let's go ahead and add our second coat. I might need to make a little bit extra blue. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a little bit more of this dark blue color, which is a little bit of my phthalo blue, a little bit of that, I think probably equal parts purple, and then a tiny bit of white. And actually I'm gonna do a little bit more white this time around, and the reasoning because is that a dark color on white canvas is going to appear lighter than it is, but because we've already put that dark color on there, the same color being put on a dark canvas is going to appear darker. So I want to make sure that my color is a little bit lighter so that I can get the correct lightness to it. Jill says, I missed you. I'm guessing you say I messed up. In what part did you mess up? Because this part is like, you can mess up here. That's totally fine. We're going to cover most of this up. Remember that this is our ugly face. So if it looks nothing like the page, that's totally fine. I messed up my white. So how did you mess up your white? Like you added too much white? If you added too much white, then you can just maybe separate half of it and then add the color back into the one of those halves. Because if you try to color like all of it, then you're just going to have a ton of paint. Okay, I have this blue. I think that is what I want. Okay. Yeah, I would just, if you put too much white in, I would just split whatever paint you have in half and then put more of the blue, purple, and maybe a little bit black in half of it. We'll probably use that lighter part for like this midsection here, so it's totally fine if it's lighter. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my second coat. This blue is dry. And I'm going to go ahead and just paint all my edges first to give you guys time to catch up if you're behind. So I've painted all my edges. I'm gonna go ahead and start painting the edges, top of it. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of black to the corners. Just so that it's a little bit darker. Or you can do like the darker blue if you have any of that left. And for this middle part, because we've already done like a middle section, I'm just going to take my brush. I'm going to do the bottom part too, because the middle part is what we want wet, so we can kind of play with it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the bottom area. And then I'm going to do a very, very watered down light coat of this blue. just so that it's wet and I have something to paint into. If it's dry, then I have nothing to paint into. But it's a very light, it's almost like a wash in the middle here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a light coating right here. And I'm going to just brush that out. Until it disappears. Going back and forth. And now there's just kind of like this light that's like radiating off of it. So that's kind of a fun thing. And I'm just going to copy that down here. All right, so while this is all still wet, I'm going to go ahead and take my round brush, so my round medium-sized brush, and I'm going to take my white, maybe dipped into a little bit of the blue. So if you already have kind of like a lighter blue, you can use that. And I'm just going to kind of figure out where this is all going to be. There's a big part right here, and there's a small part here, and you don't have to do this exactly. And I'm just kind of putting in the areas of which I kind of want this to exist. Make sure I'm gonna get my angle right. And I'm gonna go up from the angle. So I'm going against my brush and I'm kind of like pushing the paint. Okay. And because this is still wet, I can blend, like with the tip of my brush, I can blend out any white only spots. I can blend out pieces that maybe there's too harsh of a line. Okay. You can add little bits in here with just a little bit of paint on your brush. And as it starts to dry, on like the outer edges parts of it, you'll be able to do a little bit more of like some dry brush techniques. While this middle part is still dry, I do want to add a little bit more white. Which it is starting to dry a little bit, but that's okay. Just kind of keep working with it. I'm gonna start adding my pink and see how that goes. I'm gonna wait on the pink. I'm just gonna add the white right now. I'm gonna add the pink after it dries a little bit and I'm able to do some dry brush technique. Because any pink that I add right now is just gonna turn purple and it's gonna blend into the blue, and I don't really want that. All right, we're just gonna kind of peek this behind this guy. Add some more down here. Okay, and I think that's a really good starting point. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out my brushes, because I didn't rinse out my other one. And let's see. So before I put on any pink, I want to make sure that this is pretty dry. So while we're waiting for that to dry, I'm gonna move on to this guy, to this big one. Okay. Yikes, I have a mess. Let me see if I can help you while this dries. Can you describe it? If there's too much paint on your canvas, it's just all gonna mix. So you want to make sure not to, maybe let it dry a little bit and then you can move around the paint a bit. That's what I'm visualizing. When you say I have a mess, I'm visualizing just a lot of paint being on the canvas. You have to have enough paint that it's wet, but not enough paint that it's like goopy. If that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and get some white. And I might need to do 2 coats of this white here, so I'm just going to work on creating this line here. Dark is okay. I think I would rather it dark than, like, too dark than too light. Because the dark is going to accentuate the lighting from the different, it's going to accentuate the light from here and the lighting from here. So I would just, if it's too dark and you don't like it, try to blend out as much as you can, get as much paint off of the canvas as you can, let it dry, and you can always do a second coat if you need to. Alright, so what I'm doing right now is I'm putting on a white outer rim, and just in order to blend that in, I'm just kind of, I got some of that blue and just blended it in a little bit. Because I want to do a second coat of that white, I think. Or maybe I'll just go in right now and add the white. Because we want that to blend in. I'm going to wipe off my brush, and I'm just going to go back and forth back and forth, and the more times you go over something, the more blended it's going to be. So the more times I go over this, the more times, the more it's going to blend. And there you go. So now that I have that, I'm going to get some of this blue that I used before and just fill in the rest of the planet and go into that dark blue just a tiny bit. And just blend it as much as you can. Ways that you can blend two different colors is going up from the corner and blending it out like a star. Now you have these lines, and you're just going to go side to side until it's blended. And there you go. I'm gonna add a little bit more of the dark blue here, because I think I just want it to get a little bit darker. And I'm trying to keep this curve that we've got going on to really give the illusion that it is a round planet, right? So that's a good amount for the base. This is still wet, and I think I want to do one more coat of the white to really drive home the brightness of it. So while this is still white, while it's still wet, I'm gonna grab some more white. And I'm just gonna go right at the edge. I'm just going to try to blend that very tip, and then I can blend it down a little bit. Yeah, I like that. Good for me. Okay. Let's see. Mine is, for the most part, dry. I'm going to take some of this pink and see what I can do. I might need to add a little bit of white to it, brighten it up, but let's just let's go for it. So this is a dry brush technique, and I have barely any paint on my brush, and you're just going to build it up in layers. And you'll notice that I'm almost holding the paintbrush like a pencil on the side of it. And this allows me to kind of just like color on this paint. So I am adding a little bit of white to my pink. And I have too much paint. So like I said, I have barely any paint on my brush. I'm gonna focus in on these lighter areas. And if you don't want to add the pink, you could just leave it the way it was. I thought that looked cool too. I do like this pink though. All right. This is also how I do clouds and things too. Nebula are just clouds of the space, clouds of space. So if you struggle with clouds, this is really good practice. And actually next month we are going to be working on clouds. I have a whole class dedicated towards clouds. So if you struggle with clouds, make sure to visit next month because we'll be doing that. All right, so I'm just gonna slowly start adding a little bit more pink into my mixture to try to get a little bit brighter. And just little bits at a time. You don't have to put it all in at once. I would highly recommend not doing that. Okay, so this got to the point where I didn't let it dry enough before I came back and tried to put more on it, and it ended up taking off a portion of it. So I'm going to let that dry. Just putting some white gently on it. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back over it with some pink. And this process, I really feel like it could take like the whole class. Because you can literally just like keep going and going and going. An Energizer bunny. And keep adding your pink and Okay, so at this point, it is time to add our stars. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. You can add it via a toothbrush. You can get a stiff brush, like a bristle brush that has maybe some hog hair or anything like that. I used to use this brush. It's a little bit older. It's kind of frayed a little bit. Anything like that. It's not as stiff as some are, but it is frayed, which is nice, which means things like separate. So that's a good brush to use. I like to use this one for galaxies because I'm going to grab a little bit of my clean water. And I'm going to add this to my and if you've never done stars before, you want to try to get a good ratio of paint to water. And I like to say that it's like if you're not seeing bubbles, then you don't have enough water. But if you can see through the paint, like if it's translucent in any way, then you have too much water. So try to play with it, and you can always test it out on your palette. Okay. Now I'm going to get a paper towel. Actually, I can just get this. I don't want to get it on this area because I'm done with this area in terms of my my planet. So I'm just gonna makeshift a little cover for it because why not? And that's about it. So I'm just gonna put this on it. Here, I can even I'm not gonna like glue it down or anything like that, but I'm just gonna have it there so that it doesn't get on. It doesn't get on it. All right, good enough. Roughly that area. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this. And I'm just gonna do like a general flicking. The kind of just like around, you know. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cluster them, particularly in these little areas of the galaxy. So I'm going to get real close to the canvas. And I'm going to do a lot of stars in like the middle of these galaxies, of this nebula. In each one of these little spots. And you can either make, you can also make other galaxies with just these, just all these little dots. Perfect. All right. Now's the time that if you want to add any other large stars, now is the time to do that. When I made this on my iPad, I added some bigger stars, but I kind of like it. I like it how it is. I don't necessarily want to add any other big ones. So now is the time to create the planet that's over here. Now there's a couple ways that you can do this. I like to take my filbert, my small filbert, get whatever paint I'm going to be using, and I will just place it on here and then keep one side down, like in the same position, and then rotate the other side around it. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to grab this dark blue black color that I have. To figure out where I want it. I think it's like right here. It's pretty much in the middle. I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna keep the right side. Here, I'll show you. So essentially, picture this, and I'm going to keep the right side and go around it. So I'm doing that. I'm staying here, and the one that's on the inside is staying in that position. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of white just so that I can see it as I'm going. And I'm just gonna go for it. The cool thing about this is you can make a planet and then you're like, oh, that's really tiny. And then you can just do it again. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get your white and you're going to place it on the right side. And you're just going to blend it in with that side. I want to go ahead and move this so that I can do this better. And you're just going to try to blend your white on one side of it and get lighter and lighter as you go. And then on the other side, so I can see my angle is slightly off because I want it to be up to the corner. And I can always come back and add a lighter color. So now I'm going to do the opposite and add black to the other side. Alright, that looks good. I am going to add a little bit more white to that side. I think I might need to wait until it's dry. It's not dry, so it's just mixing in instead of standing out. Alright, that's good for now. Alright, let's go ahead and put in the rest of this going on here. I have this really pretty blue that I've done right here. I want to replicate that color. So I'm going to add the blue and the green to some white and see if I can get that bright color, because that is the color that I want to put over here. That's pretty good. And we are going to dry brush this. So lots of practice with dry brushing. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of paint in my round brush again. I'm going to start over here in the corner. It's not as bright as I have it on my... That's fine. I'm going to add just a little bit of this here and there. Maybe we'll have a few layers of it. All right. I'm just taking, and again, I have my brush at an angle, so I'm really just brushing the side of it to get that texture. I want the texture of the canvas on this. Mine is looking good. Great. I like mine as well. All right, so we're gonna add some white over here. To this section, and I'm just gonna pull that in. And make this white too. some more white. I'm gonna make this brighter. And at this point, I'm just using white. I'm not using any blue or anything. I think I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of green though. With my white. Just so it's not like completely white and it's a little bit. It's interesting. Most of the time when we do this sort of stuff, you don't want the texture of the canvas, and in this one I'm like all about it. Alright, so I think that's good for now. I'm going to do the bottom. I like it. It looks so cool. Okay. That's okay, Jill. If you need to pause it and rewind it at any point, you are allowed to do that. Just because it's live doesn't mean you can't stop, you can't pause it. It just means that the messages that you're seeing won't be live anymore. Okay? So if you need to pause it, feel free to do that. Don't feel like you need to rush through it. Okay, I'm going to put this on its side and put in some more white here. I really want this section to be bright. So I'm just going to use a dry brush. You are welcome. All right, so I'm just putting a white line and kind of blending it in a little bit, at least trying to, on the very edge of it. Really trying to accentuate the outer rim of it. going to do that little starburst that's right here. It's like right here. And I'm just going to do the best I can to kind of make it blend into the background, like this white piece. So I'm going to use the background colors to kind of lighten up around it, so I can come in with more of like the white right here. And we are going to do a couple layers of this white to really make it bright. I'm just dry brushing around it. This part, the dry brushing typically takes some patience because it also takes layers. So I'm just going to work around it. I'm gonna do a little tiny starburst, a little bit out to the side, but it's mostly going to be up and down. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry, and while that dries, I'm going to go ahead and put in actually, let's go ahead and do the black. Let's do the black first. So we're going to go ahead and put in our asteroids. So take whatever black that you're using. And I'm just going to figure out where I want these. I'm going to do the bottom ones first. So we're going to do a layer of black, and then we're going to come back and put color on them. Well, we're going to put black, and we're going to put like the brown, and or if you're not using brown, just like the gray and white. And I'm all done with my, whatchamacallit? My big planet. So I am okay for putting, if you're not done with it, then don't put these in yet. And these rocks come in all different colors, or not, different sizes. So if you want to do them, they don't have to look exactly like the ones that I created. They can be different shapes. All right. Guys, this is looking so cool. This is so fun. Honestly, it's coming out way better than I thought it was going to. This is just fun. I love the textures in this painting right now. The dry brush technique that we did, and just, I love it. Okay, while that first layer dries, we're gonna come back to our little starburst right here. And that's probably not what it's called. Maybe it is called a starburst. I call them starburst because in face painting we would do little starbursts. That's what we call them. They're essentially a dot, and then you flick up, you flick out, and then you do an X. And that's what we called them. That's what they're called in face painting. So now whenever I see something that closely resembles a starburst, which essentially is just a type of star that has like the little flicks, that's what I call them. That's what I think about. All right, so I'm just trying to brighten up the center part of this. I'm really just focusing on the center part. Trying to make it look like it's equally round on the outer edge of it. And I'm going to go ahead and go down in a line. And then I'm also going to go up in a line. Try to make that the same direction. And if you end up messing up, you can get a clean brush and with just like the tiniest bit of water and just go over it and wipe it off. There's so much texture in the background anyways. Even if a little bit of residue is left, it's not gonna make a big difference. Just kind of blend it in anyways. Gosh, I messed up my little planet. If you just messed it up, go ahead and take a clean brush, get it damp, so dip it in the water, wipe it off, and then just do little tiny circles on whatever part you messed up, and then just wipe it off. Wait for it to dry, and then you can redo what you did. Okay? Okay, so while that is doing, I want to do like almost like a lavender tone that we did around here, or that I did before. So I'm gonna take some of my purple maybe, or blue. Make some light purple. I think that's perfect. And then I'm gonna do the same thing except with a little bit more blue tone. So I have like a blue tone on this side that's kind of, and then a lighter tone on the other side. You don't have to do this, you could do it all the same color. All right, so I'm gonna take my small brush. I'm gonna dab it on my paper towel to kind of break apart the bristles a little bit. And I'm gonna go into this light color first, this bright lavender almost color. And I'm going to figure out where I want this. And start really light. And I'm going to use the same dry brush technique. To come around. I think I'm going to have to use a little bit more white, I would say. All right. All right, and that's pretty much it for that, so that's kind of fun. I'm gonna go ahead and make a gray. So there's gonna be about 2 tones of gray. There's a dark tone, there's a light tone, and then there's the white. So on here, Think about there's a shade, there's like the color of the rock, and then there's the highlight. But within the color of the rock, there's the color of the rock that's in the light, like that's in the light, and then there's the color that's in the shadow. So there's two tones of gray, a dark and a light, and then there's a white. Okay. So I'm gonna make those two tones now. And again, you can add brown to this or not. You don't have to. I think with all the color going on, I think I'm just gonna do black and white. So I'm gonna have two little piles of white. One is gonna have more black in it than the rest. So this is going to be my light. And then I'm going to make my black, my dark tone, which you should barely be able to see over the black. And if you want to use a palette knife for this part of it, go for it. I'm just gonna do the dry brush technique that we've been using, just to kind of keep it consistent. So I'm gonna use the same brush. Actually, I'm gonna use the bigger brush, the round one that we've been using for all the other kind of technique. I'm gonna do the darker version first. And I'm just going to just add it in certain parts of it. During this process, there's like no right and wrong way to do this. You're just adding it, and then as you go, you'll start to see like the shape of the rock that you can add your highlights to. And if you end up making it too bright, for instance like this, I feel like I got a little carried away. If it's too bright, you can always go back in with the black when we're done and darken any parts that are too bright. So now I'm going to go in with my light color, and this is the part that is in the I was going to say sun, but it's not really sun. So this is going to be on all of the outer edges of the rock, essentially. So now this is really only going to be on the very tip and like the flat surfaces that you're seeing. And I'm just using the same technique that we've been using. It's just adding little details. So here's where you can come in with some black, and any place where you feel like, oh, I added a little bit too much light there, or whatever the case, you can come back and add back in your black, your darks. And it might be helpful to like step back and like step away from your painting for a little bit to like see the overall, like to see where you should add either less or more. I'm gonna add a little bit more black in this area. I just felt like it got a little bit too bright. All right, well, that's pretty much it. You can always add more details or anything like that. I think I'm just gonna try to add a little bit more white to this part of it. Jill says, this is harder than I thought. Yeah, I think that if you're not used to using, we used a lot of dry brush technique in this class. And I think if you have never used dry brush technique, then it could definitely be a little hard to grasp at first. But it's definitely a skill that is super useful, and it's definitely a good one to practice, in my opinion. I use it a lot in some of my classes, and it's definitely a good skill to have under your belt for certain things. I think the trick is to not have like barely any paint on your brush when you're trying it out. But yeah, that is pretty much the end of class. Thank you so much for joining me. If you painted with me, which I know a lot of you did, if you painted with me and you would like to share your painting, I would love to see it. I'm going to go ahead and post the community group that I'm in, or that I created. So let me go ahead and find that. And I'll go ahead and link it in the comments. It's also, all of the links that I ever talk about is in the description as well. So if I ever talk about something and you're like, I didn't get a link, or I don't know where to find it, it's in the description. But here is this. Okay, so that is the link to my Facebook group. You can either put it right on the wall, like the timeline wall. You can share it that way, or I typically will add it after class. I'll add it as a separate album, and in that album you can click on the album and then you can add it to that album. So anybody who's ever taken the class can go to that album and see your artwork along with everybody else who took the class, and it's really cool. If you do it just on the timeline, it won't add it to that album, and then it'll kind of just be lost in the feed of the never-ending posts that happen. So if you want it to be categorized in that album, which is really cool for other people to see too, then go ahead and add it to the album, and then that post, you adding it to the album, will automatically post it to the timeline where everybody else can see it, okay? Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really loved this one. I think it came out great. Hopefully you love yours too. And yeah, we'll see you next time. We'll see you next week. Next week we're doing a card class. So we're doing acrylics on like something that we can make for cards. So if you want to know how to do DIY cards, make sure to stay tuned and we'll see you next week. Bye guys.